Dear friends, I, Architect Neelam Manjunath, welcome you all to our Simple Talks 6 on the topic of innovation in environmental risk analysis and sustainability strategies by from Center for Green Building Materials and Technology, School of Simple Living, Bangalore. Today we have Professor Architect Anand DK in conversation with Prashad Babu, founder and CEO of Geoclimatic Risk Solutions Private Limited. I welcome you both to the talks.
Thank you.
Professor Architect Anand DK is an advisory member of CGBMT. He is currently the Professor Design Chair at College of Architecture, Trivandrum. A senior architect with a strong lineage to project management and development consulting. He graduated from Government College of Architecture, Lucknow, and established a design and practice partnership. And later on, he went on to work with large corporates like Sterling Resorts, Embassy Group, Conferry, is international in India and Middle East, including establishing and leading Nielsen Worldwide, a large US-based design practice in Delhi and Bangalore. He has steered several design and project teams, including hospitality, residential, commercial developments, and strategic planning projects, amongst others. He mentors a design studio doing international developments at Trivandrum, Kerala. Architect Anand is a fellow of the Institute of Architects and a professional member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, UK. He has served as an adjunct faculty at various schools of design. Welcome, DK. May I request you to introduce our guest today, Mr. Prashad Babu.
Thank you, Architect Neelam. It is always a pleasure to discuss and be part of Simple Talks, Sadharan Baatein, and especially when we engage in speaking with some experts who are very close to nature and become a guardian of the nature as well. Mr. Prashad Babu is the founder and CEO of Geoclimatic Risk Solutions Private Limited, a firm which he established after 15 years of experience in various fields, including his engagement in UNDP programs. He is a postgraduate in civil engineering with a specialization in geoinformatics and engineering, gap science from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and a PG degree in applied geology from Andhra University. His firm, which was established a few years back, is focused on a lot of environmental issues, protection, and they have a love for nature. Since inception, they promoted thoughts of doing something that will become, that is very small, yet definite role in igniting interest in corporate, government, and communities to help the cause of sustainability. The vision of the company is held to align with the sustainability development goals of 2030. So obviously they have a very large picture as they look at what they are doing. The geoclimate risk consulting is very much technologically advanced. When we talk about environment and when we say some projects are coming up here and there, we often get worried about what's happening to the environment. There is no, and the metrics on which the environment is measured are on several parameters, may it be on natural resources or may it be the impacts that it makes and it intends to make when the project happens. So it is very important to really assess what is the ideal level, what is the impact due to these projects that are coming up, whether it is development or infrastructure or any project for that matter, And where is the measuring point? Often we hear many countries have established some repository and have that data across the country, which probably is missing in India at the moment and is getting built up. And Prasad is making an attempt to establish that. Prasad's company incidentally was supported by GAIL, the Gas Authority of India Limited, during its inception, understanding the large vision map, and they play a pilot role and help them by taking a minor stake, but a lot of guidance onto the larger footprint, especially to understand. Their attempt was to ask Prasad to create some tools and platforms by which they have get an advanced information when they go into their gas exploration projects. Prasad has been working on several projects since then, including working with the government and other projects which is spread across the country. He had been on projects and establishing services, environmental impact assessments, environmental assurances projects, and probably even making a repository of information which can be used by everybody. So welcome, Mr. Prasad, into this talk show. I'm sure there will be a lot of listeners who will enjoy part of the guidance or the things that you would share, which comes in from a lot of information that you have gathered, and that will become helpful for all the people who are coming up with multiple projects. Now, typically, my first query to you, Mr. Prasad, is that we often hear this project, that project expanding in our country. And professionals or non-professionals often wonder that is there any impact of such large projects, even developmental projects or infrastructure projects that comes into it. I know we are all growing. I know we need these projects, but where do we begin, and where do you come in, and how do you start the exercise? And do we have some data which is already there, which becomes a benchmark to begin the exercise? Mr. Prasad.
Yeah, so as you have done most of the job by introducing, our company and, me. Thanks for that, and thanks for the opportunity given by the whole team of you. And I would like to answer your question in a manner that most of the developmental projects in India or across anywhere in the globe, elsewhere in the globe, so they have to undergo, some kind of the information related to environment. So it has to pass through the environmental the judgment, whether it is going to impact, or even in the beginning, the planning stage, whether it is, whether because of the developmental project, whether biodiversity or the environment is going to lose its charm. So that is any developmental projects undertake such study as well as the analysis. So as far as GCR is concerned, we don't just do the very qualitative information, say that, by laying some kind of, the pipeline or maybe establishing the infrastructure, so you will lose the forest or something like that. But we also look at the, bring the matrix, as you rightly said, that quantification figures we bring into it. What is the biodiversity performance after establishing your unit? Or maybe what could be the losses in terms of the quantum? Okay, and also we convert them into a monetary the losses. It's not just about the forest cover; it's also about the how much money it should incur because of the losses. So we develop a matrix in such a way that even a common layman can understand that what is the risk at the current situation and what is going to be in the future after maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So these are the different skills that we work. So that is how we are very much aligned with the SDG goals that you have mentioned.
It's quite interesting. So what are the specific areas which becomes very important for you, and which of those factors do you take into consideration, especially when a large project is announced? I mean, it can be anything. And let's say we recently heard that last few years we were always speaking about Amravati as a capital is coming. Independent of Amravati as an example, I'm saying as
Yeah.
such a developmental Raj project comes into being, a new city, a new mega structure. What would have been your engagement, or where would you have focused and suggested, and what would you have measured to tell them to be rightfully thoughtful about?
Yeah. So in GCR's point of view, actually we look at the bringing or integrating the various parameters into the picture when we give the decision. So, for example, for any, like you have rightly said that Amravati project, for example. So we bring the natural resource information, like how it is going to deteriorate the natural resources in a given situation, and what could be the environmental impacts. And also, we have to be very careful that India is a geography in such a way that we face with a lot of natural hazards, like it could be a cyclone, flood, earthquake. So these, most of the cases, we build infrastructure, then we think about these natural disasters or hazards. So we create the natural disaster. We don't, see that how hazards are going to demolish all this infrastructure. So we try to integrate all those natural and geophysical feature into the in a geospatial enabled tools. And also we also bring the kind of very dynamic database like satellite images. Satellite images derives, and also the population growth we consider, because most of the cases we don't consider the population growth. So we bring a lot of information. So as a different blocks like environment and the population as a socio infrastructure, and also the environmental side and the biodiversity and the natural resources. So these are the different blocks, and within the blocks we build a lot of parameters and the combinations in a geospatial technologies. So it's everything that we talk is a location based. We don't say that Amravati, within the Amravati example. So we pinpointly say that these are the locations where you could expect the flood. These are the locations who are very much needed for more mitigative options. So by combining all of them, we say that it's not feasible here for this moment. So I mean, we bring a lot of the spatial information into the picture.
I think there is a lot of geography which plays a vital role at this point of time. It's a mix between the knowledge of geography and the way you have converted the geographical information on a technology side and then put it back on a measurable tool on the environment measurement science side is probably what I would say is what you are trying to help. And at the same time, you're also creating a benchmark. This is an acceptable form. Because of this development, these are the impacts that will happen, and these are the future impacts that will be detrimental on the growth of that area. That's probably what I can see. Who are your typical clients?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, nowadays most of our day-to-day lives, we order food using Zomato or Swiggy, and invariably everybody uses the geographical information. The location is the very much key for delivery as well as for ordering. And we also calculate how much time it is going to take, by passing through certain route. So geography eventually, so most of the developmental projects, they look only the economy or the economy side, but they don't look at the geography side. This is very, very important for environment and for sustainability. Geography plays very important role. So, so definitely you're right. Our company, we promote the geography and the GIS and the locations. So for your second question, like the typical clients, like, whoever is using the natural resources, the intensive consumers, okay, let it be a, water resource intensive units, or let it be natural, cross-country pipelines. They demolish lot of, forest cover, for example. So they, disturb lot of landscape that is coming all along the pipeline, for example. Or the industry like textile industry who consume lot of water. Or the water plants, like they consume lot of water. And the plants or the industry that emit lot of, the carbon emission. So these are the some of our typical clientele. And also we help the governments to plan, in different targets, like the short-term plan, the long-term plan. So we prepare a plan in such a way that we model the complete resources for different scenarios. So based on the scenarios, the government can really plan how they can plan their resources, or maybe implement some of the state-run programs or centrally run programs according to this plan. So this is how we cover both central and the state governments and the corporates, and also we work with the NGOs. Most of the NGOs work on the ground.
So I guess it is more like a real-time forecasting and problem with this project. These are the plus points, these are the minus points. Let's consider these are the things that you need to address so that all the negatives can be mitigated in some form, and subsequently where growth can happen, where you can probably use a common language of carbon footprints being shortened out, or water being, bringing back the water into the system, improving the green covers, a typical language that we often say but not measure, but they start and the end is visible. But I think your game plan or your proposals give them the entire link between ensuring that that is being taken care of and the right way it should be done. Correct? If I can.
Yeah, exactly. Like just like a doctor runs the ECG for the patient. Okay, we run the this screening process for the any infrastructure that will on the Earth's surface. We run this process so that you will identify where the plot or where the damage has already occurred.
I think
so. You are looking at every development as a patient only, ensuring that he's coming out of it every time.
No, any development it takes place on the Earth's surface, it is going to give some positive or negative impact, and definitely there is going to be impact. So our duty is to safeguard our Earth. So that is the only point I am trying to say.
True. You have been developing some products also, which can be helpful for either corporates or groups to be parallelly working on it. Can you tell us something more about the products that you have been working on, and what kind of monitoring system or what kind of insurance is that supposed to do?
Yeah, sure. See, one of our product is that we say called GeoMonitor. What it does is that it understands the various parameters like natural hazards, or as I spoke in all these things just now, like biodiversity and resource information. So we combine all of them and we give the prior to the project and the post the project. So the prior to the project, whether it is suitable or not, we give that information in terms of the simple risk score and sustainability scores. And the post implementation, we continue to monitor using the latest satellite imageries on very continuous basis, so that they will not deviate from what was existed before. That's the number one. Another product we have is that with my experience, I understand that for any decision making, you require some data and the information. So in India, for especially the environment, decision making, we don't have much data. So some of our products we capturing the carbon footprint, for example, or water footprint. This is very much required because we consume a lot of natural resources and we don't understand the value of the natural resources. So unless we understand how much we are consuming, how much we are emitting to the nature, and how much is available, not only even for our future generation. So unless we understand these figures, just like our saving bank account, so we will not be able to take any action. So that is our idea, build the database in terms of the location-based information, so that everybody understands. Everybody has to play key role in this. So we cannot say that government is doing nothing, or the NGOs are doing nothing. So it's everybody's game. So this is how we have the products in such a way that they bring such kind of information so that it can be used by various people.
I like this connotation where you say that things are becoming measurable, and when things becomes measurable, the people try to relate it better. It's just like saying you're doing something there. This is a village with 100 people or a town with 100 people. if this project comes in this particular form, all of you 100 people will not be able to breathe after 8 years, or your children will not have an oxygen to breathe in that area. You better go somewhere else. And this is how it is done. If you do not want to do that, ensure this is come, put this in place, put this in place. So not only your generation, but also the next few generations will have that air available. I like that. I like that because I think bringing it on a measurable form where a person can measure it and see its relation helps them to understand the entire metrics better. And I do understand that government may not be in a position to give all that data, and people like you who are probably the connoisseurs of environment and taking the guardianship are ensuring that information is getting available as the developers or if developments do happen across. I like this. The other thing which I probably want to ask you is that what are your typical services? I mean, is it only advising these things, or you make some kind of other long-term assessment plans on either the project or project impacting areas? Any impact, environmental impact assessments and things like that? And if so, where do you specialize in that area?
Yeah, it's our typically we provide the services, especially as I was mentioning about the measuring the impacts, measuring the resources. So our most of our services are related to using the spatial tools to measure the resources, spatial tools to measure the risk part of it, and also understand that the need for the long-term need and the short-term need of the industry or the population of the community. And based on that, we give the different scenarios. Definitely, we have a models, the scientific models that we use, but we definitely use the location is our key. So we provide the services in terms of the location based and the spatial, analysis. All the services are linked to the SDGs. So most of the services that we develop around the SDGs. So we definitely bring the SDGs as a part of the services.
I'm curious to ask the question. Often you are suggesting things which are probably not in the minds of the promoter or the developer of the project. And you are probably asking or suggesting them some more things to do because to ensure that the environment is protected. Now, does these suggestions relate to the costs of the project going up in some form? Or do they just bring an initial cost and then subsequently bring a better return? Is that, I mean, how do you look at
that is where our model works. We will not say that we are not activists say that don't cut the trees and don't cut the don't harm the environment. So we are not activists. So what we do is we analyze the historical information by using the historical satellite information and historical, their industry or whatever the location-based information. We build the case in such a way that they will convince for the, how to behave in the future. So, I mean, our duty is to convince them by using our model. So that is our unique selling point, basically.
Right. And let me ask you in a different way. You have already been doing consulting in several projects. How many of them have really adopted it sacrosanct in the similar manner? And how many of them you had to spend more time to make them understand the importance of that?
To be honest, most of the people, they respect the environment, because we all come from the nature. So we are the elements in the nature. So they all understand. Its only thing is that by sitting in their positions and their inability to take the decision. So those are the some of the few points which they cannot take the decision. But otherwise, everybody respects the environment and nature. So some of them really worked out, and they could take the proactive and they could take the decisions of taking our services.
So you have been working on government side, you have been working on private developers side, you have been also working on the NGO side. Where do you think are the ones who can play a larger role on the community by and large, or looking at the future, who do you think is playing the major role on the positive side? Obviously.
Yeah, I think, three of them, whereas when we work with the community, they are very site specific and location specific. When we work with the industry, they are a bit regional specific. When we work with the government, they are much more, the state and the national specific. So I think it's a different level. Everybody has to play their role. I cannot very exclusively say that, this is good and this is bad, but everybody has to work in different forms of, delivering the this sustainability motto.
But I have seen larger, better effects than when the boundaries was large, and especially that becoming a long time goal, and this becoming a short term or short period resolution that is visible, right?
Yeah. It's the industry definitely is very proactive. Most of the industry, because they have to survive. They take all this, short term and the long term goals. In terms of government, the decisions are, in different level. So we cannot judge on the, government decisions.
I know that this is not a platform where somebody will start a new project, but let me ask a question that if there is a large infrastructure development project in somebody's mind, what do you think is your guidance, or where we should take care, and what he should definitely look at, which people tend to ignore?
Yeah, see, most of the the developmental projects, they change the landscape very dynamically. I think one cannot disturb the landscape. When I say the landscape contains all the the water information, biodiversity information. So the moment we can give a lot of excuses, say that we will rebuild and we mitigate and we bring new technology. I am pretty much sure that that won't work. So once you disturb the Earth's surface or the Earth future, you cannot rebuild it back in the same manner. So definitely it is going to give the negative impact. So better to keep or intact as much as you can the nature itself, and you accordingly you maneuver your project. So rather than disturbing and rebuilding, better to keep intact nature, and you maneuver your project accordingly, or you adopt, rather, I would say, in simple terms.
Let me hope that you are not saying not to do much developments by not touching the nature.
No, I am not saying that let's not do the development. You adopt the nature in such a way that you develop, but you don't disturb too much.
I know, I understand that. I'm sure the language is very clear that the least interference on our natural resources and the way it has been balanced upon is the best way to fructify your efforts and to ensure that thing is available for the future generations and things are on an improved form.
I can give one example. As a farmer, for example, if a farmer, if he sells the produce directly to the consumer, okay, and definitely the person get the most of the benefit. At the same time, the consumer respects the produce as well as the farmer respects the produce. But if you bring the middleman in between, for example, okay, the middleman doesn't know the value of the product, both the sides. Where the consumer side he put lot of money and the farmer he put lot of effort. The middleman, if something happens, he just throw away without any impact from his inside. So this is the kind of very typical when the development takes place. The nature as well as the end, the consumer, these two are apart, and there is a middleman who is the developer. So they have to understand this situation very well.
So the culprit lies between not at the promoter and the land surface, is lying between the guys who are sitting in the between, not understanding both the sides and ensuring the business is running.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we as a developer, we have to ensure that that is developed and designed properly.
Yeah, thank you. It was very pleasure speaking with you. Neelam, if you have any questions for Prasad,
nice. Thank you so much. I think that was really great. In fact, we have been so far working with the ideas and the advocacy with all other talks that we have been talking. So this is a very nice one where we have the real data, and how do you impact, how do you actually put a figure to what kind of impacts these these things would be actually having. So I have some few questions, Prashant, just some queries. I wouldn't say my curiosity. One is that with geography, I think geology also comes into the picture. Am I right?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So geology also comes into the picture because without that, it's not just the surface; it's also the whole, this thing. There's one more thing. I would like to know what is the smallest size of project that you might have done, where you're talking about the farmer and the produce and the consumer. And so what is the smallest size of project that you have done, or you can take up, or you can take up?
Have the products, ma'am. Yeah, we have the products, ma'am. Like GeoCrop is our product where it connects the consumer and the producer directly. So there is no middleman actually. If the consumer likes it, can take from the producer directly. So that is our own platform. And similarly in the water sector also we have the similar platform. But in terms of the services, we are into the small farmers resilience, establishing the baseline, end line, and understanding their interventions. And also we are working at the state level where we understand the water resource information, giving the appropriate water budgeting and water security planning. Currently, we are working with the 7 states under one of the national project to improve the groundwater management. So in all 7 states, at Gram Panchayat level, village level, people measure the water availability and water consumption, come up with the water balance, and also they plan the water security for the future. So these are the different services and projects we have.
No, why I was trying to understand was
definite size.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
We don't have any definite size, ma'am. We have various size and scales of these projects.
No. Why I was talking about that was because of this, again, a call for decentralization. The way the COVID thing has happened now, I think communities have to take care of their immediate surroundings to really fulfill all their requirements for water and for agriculture and things like that, because it is better not to move too much and it will become local and organic and things like that. And that is why I that query was there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so one more question was, I think P.K. Anand sir also was talking about your role in, like, you do the risk assessment and then you have given sustainability strategies. So what you told us when he was telling that, you tell them to don't cut trees and things like that. But what you said, no, we just advise. So in a consultative manner as to you should be doing these things. And because of it, so in the strategy planning or strategy, making, how do you, to what extent, because we have been trying to advise people for a long time about, let's say, solar passive architecture and no use of air conditioning and things like that. But people actually don't listen. Like I will come to a very small person who is like a house. Somebody builds a house and they will think, oh, I'm making my house one time in the lifetime and I will make it the way I want. I will use a 10 kilowatt electricity. Why I should be restraining myself to 3 kilowatt? Why I should be doing this? It is a very difficult thing to convince people. And in that condition, they are actually able to take decisions, definitely on individual level. So on large level, large projects, it becomes even more difficult. And that is why I was asking, how do you?
Yeah, we have one example, one of the industry. They are in a water stressed area, the region. So what they have been consumed a lot of water, but recent past they are having the trouble from the farmers surrounded by that industry in the neighborhood, and whatever the surface water which is available earlier, now it is not available because farmers also they are growing different crops and water intensive crops. So now industry either they have to adapt that situation, or maybe, yeah, look for the other alternative resources. And the natural resource, you cannot just have a natural resource within the same landscape. You cannot create. This is not an artificial thing. It is a natural resource map. So our model, we clearly construct all these, historical data. We model in such a way that they have to take the decision to cut the natural resources. So I mean, there is no other way around actually.
Okay,
So,
one last question. I think, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Because very important question. I want to, before, the EIA and its role, you give all these strategies and you give all this data, and still we have companies which are going and taking approvals in very sensitive and biodiversity hotspot areas. That was one thing. And secondly, I think it has been there's a draft going around for inviting people's suggestions, because it seems a lot of the clauses have been diluted. And while COVID is going on and all of us are busy trying to save our lives, government has been silently giving green signal to several projects which actually are going to really affect the biodiversity and our geological things and all these kind of things in a very bad manner. We all know that. So how do we, what are your suggestions? How do you make it effective and what should be done actually?
Ma'am, first of all, the India has to redefine its protected areas, the biodiversity areas. All greens, it looks like for us is a protected area, but in terms of the government or in terms of the as an admin, that boundaries, so they are not part of the protected areas. If you look at the India protected areas and the forest cover, which is very less. But whatever we see as a green, for us as a common man, I'm talking as a common man, it looks like it's a protected area. Every tree is a protected area for me.
Yes.
Government doesn't, so as a, to give the permission. And to connect this point, the government is also talking about the natural resource efficiency policy, ma'am. In 2019, it's already there. If you look at the India website, it's all placed for the public exposure. And I think this is going to be a game changer, NREP, Natural Resource Efficiency Policy 2019. And that's where, most of the industries, they will look for the, alternative resources so that they have a less dependency on the natural resources.
I also feel that while there are a lot of efforts by the government, maybe on the right side or on the wrong side, the perception of the common public matters. As we said, on one end, as you said, that maybe the green, what you see is not really a green which is protected. But for me, it is green. I am a common man. Yeah, Mr. Prasad, often the question is that what, as a common man, when I see green, for me, that is green. So there is a lot of difference and a gap between what actually the policy is saying and to what we are perceiving it. So it is very important that we are educated. The common man is also educated on the long-term plans of the policy. As we just heard that, in fact, I read in the last week that the duration now allowed is only around within 20 days, EIAs are going to be approved. Now, which is actually a statement which we always wonder. It should have become 100 days. Why did it short out? Because where is that gap? That education is missing. That understanding is missing between government initiative and if it is rightfully done to what we perceive as where it is disintegrating to where it is heading to.
See, while the government wants to say that, they wanted to do the fast track process for any development. Like in earlier, it takes, 1 year, 2 years sometimes. So they want to do the fast track. It doesn't mean that they won't take all these, social and environmental, inclusions. So they will not remove all those clauses. It's only like, process. So earlier the system is like file based. Now everything is electronic. You have verification is electronically done. So most of the things, as I rightly said, location based information brought into the system. So where you can see the map and judge that whether it is a forest area, non-forest area. Earlier it was not done like that. So that is the only difference, like fast tracking of the decisions.
My worry is little beyond that. My worry is
Yeah.
that on one side you do a fast track. Very good.
Yeah.
Technology is helping us. But on the other side, we also know that things have been diluted. The industries still exist. Industry still continues to harm our environment. So probably I'm going to link it that on one side, you are making me stringent and saying that I will shorten it and get all the clearances. Probably I will ignore all the finer lines now will be missing, which will be probably saying that look after this, ensure this parameter is mentioned. And even if I go beyond what is written, I am not punished. So I can continue to thrive on beating my environment as far as me as a businessman can make my money.
And I also,
I think
yeah.
this is going to change, I think, soon. I mean, this will not continue because there is a lot of transparency is coming up actually, either for the establishments as well as the government side also. I think this is going to be changed, I'm sure.
Oh, do you think that 20 days, I think, okay, 1 or 2 years was a long time, I get it. But 20 days, I think, is a very short time to really, kind of evaluate these kind of projects. I think that's not a very, I would say at least about 3 months or something. 3 months. 3 months. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, it's minimum that much. I think would be required, isn't it?
Yeah, 20 days is not for the evaluating the complete projects. It's like there is going to be background checks is already been done. It's only like that permissions are going to take for 20 days. That is they are talking like fast tracking the decisions. So earlier they used to keep the pending lot of pending cases around them, and because of industry also think that once it goes to the government, it is going to delay it much. So I think that is going to change, not the the validation and the evaluation at the ground level.
No, but what I feel is that, see, most of these projects generally impact a very larger population in a community, and public consultation on those kind of projects is definitely required. Now,
Yes.
where do you have that window of public participation in these kind of things? Because, and what is happening is many of the developments which are generally supposed to be proper, they don't happen because the public has not been taken into confidence, and because the other people would have had some advantageous status, and due to which they get their clearances very fast. It does not come under any of the public scrutiny at all, which is not right. Because in today's day and age, when we are talking about that, okay, let's have every man, every human being, especially like from my organization also, everyone should become aware as to what is happening around them, and they should do their bit towards the environment. In that case, if nothing, I would at least if there's a petition going around, I would definitely want to become part of it, to see that things go in a proper manner. So where is that window, in the EIA, this thing, and when do they actually make the projects public ever? I think that should be a very important part in a democratic, setup.
Yes. No, I 100% agree with you, ma'am. That's what the difference now is making. Like for the public disclosure, it is happening very fast. Like when you say the public disclosure, at a various level. Earlier, it used to be like the news paper advertisement or something like that. But now the public disclosures in various forms. There could be electronic meetings and public meetings, and also the disclosure at a different level is happening simultaneously. So that could be the reason why they are saying it's a fast track. It's not that they are ignoring all this process.
While things are getting fast tracked to get the file processing time reduced electronically to make it small, it is good.
Yeah.
As far as all the parameters are measured, are done is good. But I think what
Public
is
consultation.
missing is probably the stringent action when you when you
Yeah.
still go beyond what is asked for. Where are we?
Yeah.
They continue to survive. It is not that they really follow what they have written on their own books of commitment.
Yeah, I mean, like,
There
for
I
are
think
some
that's
example,
where
books which is-
NGT is keep on, tapping all this. I think that could be the
Yeah,
reason.
I mean, like it is only
no, I
a
will.
tap and response. A tap and a response. My trees are anyway going away. My fossils are anyway burning away. My carbon is anyway increasing. So while they can keeping on tapping and heaving, that's it.
No, like
Yeah.
communities who have been there for a long time, they are declared as encroachers. I mean, I mean, you just don't take them into consideration at all. And then you have a thing, or like Amphan, what has happened in Amphan, it's like you have these big thermal reactors which put this hot, water which actually comes out as a, you know, from their reactors, and is put in the marine, in the sea, and the temperature of the water goes up, and you have these surfaces which heat up, and that's how the Amphan, something like Amphan, comes actually into the picture. Now, I mean, and again, yesterday I read somewhere that India and Bangladesh together, again, they are trying to put another thermal plant right where the Sundarbans are actually, I mean, are there, the mangroves. So these kind of, how did they get a clearance? If this is a kind of thing we are talking about, how do these kind of companies and projects, I wouldn't say companies, projects get clearances? And these are government projects because it's between Indian and Bangladesh government.
There is other side also, ma'am. Actually, one of the major problem that we see that when we involved in analyzing such case study, so there is no baseline data. So for you, like since you have a very historical information, you talk that the Sundarbans, that particular location, you talk about the marine outfall and all the stuff. So, but this is not built in as a baseline for someone to understand. Like there is a here and there you have a history and you have a location-based information, but not across the the platform. We don't have any baseline data established that. So that is the major gap that we have in India.
No, so that is why I was telling, see, you try to suppose, even if you float for public consultation, how many of the public people actually would understand what will be the far-reaching consequences, as Professor Anand was speaking, that, okay, they see some things, but and that they can talk about, but they are far-reaching things. Like, I was not aware about this water getting heated up because the thermal power plants, actually they just throw the water into the sea, and they are very high temperature waters which actually are put in the sea. And that's how you have all these these cyclones which are going on happening is because of the sea water heating up, because of these thermal reactors which are generally at the edge of the coasts and things like that, and across the world that's what is happening.
The marine outfalls.
And the whole marine ecology and all those things are getting destroyed. That's another story. But what I'm just talking is, how do we stop all these? Like, how do we do? What do we do? I mean, since you are into this risk solutions, so I'm asking your solution.
Beginning of my presentation, I have mentioned that each and every
slightly not audible.
is there, in a situation, and was the past and what is the future industries, then only they will be able to say something. Whatever the public hearings and all.
I'm sorry. Could you,
when you have certain information?
Oh, could you repeat that, because I think the net was not proper, so I think we missed a little bit of it. Could you just repeat?
As I was mentioning, ma'am. As I was mentioning, most of the public, they are unaware that what is the baseline they have in.
Okay.
They don't know what is the baseline, like whether you put the industry which emits a lot of carbon, if they don't know what is baseline, the current situation, so the industry always can claim after 10 years that, this is the baseline.
Yeah.
So if you know the baseline and if you start measuring what is changes that are happening around you, then you can, this public ye chalta hai, this is good.
Okay. Okay. Actually,
One thing is very sure, that there is a lot of gap between a common man's expectations of the environment, who seems to understand the environment better than the business houses and the governmental projects, who put in across a project where they can see and measure the environment going down. Now, it will not be fair to say that only the ignorance or not having a baseline could have done that. But definitely there is a gap between that. Now, either, as we said, there has to be more public engagement, more awareness, and it should become a little wider to make sure the right experts play a pivotal role, look beyond the business angle and political angle, and look at the environment side and make that as a more lasting thing, because that is only what can keep us ahead. All other things will probably take us behind.
Yes.
That's all what I can say after this good.
Yeah, so exactly that is
We
what
need more
discussions.
Sorry,
yeah, no, that is why we have brought you as because from our organization, this simple talks, the Sadharan Baatein, it's like we want the public to understand what's going on around them. And so through our posts that we are running, also the 1 year long campaign, which we call On Simple Living, we are trying to give the public, like, okay, this is the problem. And these are some of the basic statistics that you're supposed to know. And these are some solutions, small, simple solutions that you can do at your end.
Yes.
It's, I mean, that's what we actually are trying to do. And that is where our simple talks comes to the picture, and people like you and like Professor D.K. Anand, who has been trying to do these large projects where he also has been doing assessment maybe in a different manner. And I think combining these into those probably will get to where we need to get in future. And that is why these platforms we are trying to create. So we will be very happy if you could share some data that you think are as baseline data that we could share with the public, and your apps, so that we can also put them in the post, and people can actually you have told that some simple tools are there through which people can understand. So that would be really great. And I think we would like to engage the public, and that will be really great. And looking forward to much more engagements and collaborations with you in future, in all our projects also, and in all other projects also.
Sure, ma'am.
We get together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
No, our
And
pleasure.
we need more discovery channels like this.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
This is one of the ones. The simplest way is get across to masses.
Yeah, masses.
Yes,
that is
yes,
what
yes,
we are trying to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.